Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates. Post-game live after the Warriors suffer their first road defeat of the season, their first blowout loss of the season as well to the Cleveland Cavaliers at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse on Friday. I want to start with a positive, right? And so we have to turn away from this game. I'm just following along to the Santa Cruz Warriors, their opening game of the season against the Valley Suns, and a good start for the Santa Cruz Warriors. After the opening quarter, they put up 40 points. They now lead 42-27 early in the second quarter. Quentin Post, of course, intriguing Warriors rookie, taken with the 52nd pick in the 2024 NBA draft. First quarter stat line, 8 points, 7 rebounds, 3 of those offensive, 2 assists, +7, 4 of 8 shooting. Did miss both of his three-point attempts, but some nice moves in the paint. So 8, 7, and 2 for Quentin Post in his first quarter with the Santa Cruz Warriors. So going to be following that with interest as it goes along here. Let's get back onto the Warriors versus the Cavs game here. I mean, what more can you say, really, from a Warriors standpoint? That Cavs first half was extraordinary from them, and you've got to give them credit. They're the only unbeaten team in the league for a reason. In saying that, I don't take too much out of it. In fact, if anything, I actually like the fight back in the second half. The Warriors lose 136-117 by 19-point loss after they'd fallen behind by 41 at halftime. So to come back and actually win the second half as comprehensively as they did, I think is a good reminder of their resilience, and the fact that this team fought it out, I think, is actually a positive. And that first half, I mean, I was just watching it and thinking, okay, well, we're seeing the Cavs just shoot the crap out of the ball at a rate that is not sustainable, and it wasn't for them in the second half. And how many times are you going to see a team start 13 of 17 from three-point range? You're just not. And so from that point, I was just seeing 3 after 3 going in and think to myself, okay, really, whatever happens from here, I'm just not taking too much from the game, and I'm not like positive or negative. Like, I don't really care too much about it. Like, the Kuminga stuff in the first half was a bit of a positive for the Warriors, but really, I feel like this is a game, and you're going to have some of these over an 82 game schedule where you just don't take anything from the game. Like, I had a mate message me at half, like in the second quarter, and he was like, "Oh, it's just good to see them, being competitive in most of these games again. They're not a genuine threat. Just nice to see them competitive." And I'm like, I don't like this game. There's just so much overreaction to me from mates of mine and people on social media that just, you can't go from the absolute highs and think, oh my God, this team's a championship contender after the Celtics game, and then go the complete opposite and say, oh no, we need a trade. And, this is a disaster and things aren't going well after the first half of this game. Like, it's an 82 game schedule. Things will happen, positive and negatively. And as I was saying after in a post game live, I think it was a couple of games ago, where someone, praised me, I suppose, for not being too overreactionary and trying to stay balanced. And that's what I'm trying to be here as well. 82 game season. You're going to have performances like this one. I mean, you're not really, because, again, when a team's going to go 13 to 17 from three-point range to start the game, when Ty Jerome's starting to knock down back-to-back threes, and he's got 13 points on 5-5 shooting against his former team in the first half, you just got to sit there and think, okay, well, it's just one of these games. And it was like, there were plays where even shots that the Cavs were missing, the ball was just falling in their lap on offensive rebounds. And the Warriors didn't bring the energy. And Steve spoke about it in the post-game press conference. He said, I didn't do a good job of preparing my guys to play over the last 2 days, which seems to be an often said thing from Steve whenever a loss comes up, and particularly blowout loss like this. He always seems to put it on himself first and foremost, and specifically how he prepared his players for the game. And they just didn't bring it from the outset. You go down 20-2 in the first 5-6 minutes, and the game's basically over from that point. I was interested to see if the Warriors could provide a response. They kind of did over the remainder of the first quarter, but then the Cavs' three-point shooting was just way too much, and it was a bit of an embarrassment in that first half. But then again, you see a team shoot the ball like that, and you kind of just got to give plaudits to them, I think, at the end of the day. And that was that win for the Cavs was almost more about them, I think, and what it says about them more so than the Warriors. Again, I don't leave the game feeling any different about the Warriors. Looking at this 3-game stretch, the Celtics, the Cavs, the Thunder, I thought, okay, if the Warriors can get one game, then they're doing a good job. They've already got that one game. They already got that impressive win against the Celtics. Now, that doesn't mean that you want to come out and be 41 points down against the Cavaliers as they were here, but it does give you some leeway to think, okay, they can afford this type of performance where the other team just shoots absolutely lights out from 3-point range. And we've still got in the rearview mirror that Celtics win, which you can't go away from, right? That was a really impressive victory. And so I don't really feel differently about the Warriors based on this game. I just don't. So interested to hear your thoughts if there's anyone in the stream here. GSW said, couldn't watch the Warriors versus Cavs because I had a game. Why you reckon Kuminga ain't starting yet? He's been really good. He has been good since coming off the bench. I think Steve just prefers him in that role because there's still question marks in terms of the spacing in the starting lineup. Now, should they go back to that? Curry, Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond, TJD. I don't think they will. They started GP2 in this one now for obvious reasons in terms of trying to stop the Cavs dynamic backcourt of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. And it was actually Garland that got off the chain in this one, 27 points, 6 of 10 from 3-point range. Just looking at the stats here, like Mitchell had, I think, 12 points for the game. Steph only had 12 as well. So those guys just had really little impact. And it was everyone else around that from a Cavs perspective in terms of Garland going for 27, Mobley going for 23, like Ty Jerome finishing with 20 off the bench. Again, a revenge game for him against the Warriors. So in terms of Kuminga, again, good game from him. Was really the only one that brought it in the first half, 14 points. Finished with a team high 21, had 6 rebounds, 5 assists. So I thought he was really, really good. Probably the biggest positive from a Warriors standpoint. There was really no positives among the veteran players. It was more so just the youngsters who got a bit more opportunity in the blowout loss, obviously, and showed quite a lot in the second half, which, again, hopefully the Warriors can take with them moving forward. But I just don't think like the lack of spacing in that Warriors starting lineup is a concern and certainly has contributed to their slow starts here, where outside that Rockets game, Golden State have got a bit of an issue in terms of starting games slowly. And against good teams, you just can't get away with it. Like, yes, against the banged up Pelicans. Yes, against, I don't know, the Utah Jazz and the Portland Trail Blazers in the first couple of games. Yes, you can get away with it to an extent and you can come back and you can not only win those games, but you win those games comfortably. But against a very, very good top 3 team in the league like the Cavaliers are right now, who are undefeated, especially on their home floor, you're not going to come back from that. 20-2 start, game's over essentially from that point. And you're pushing uphill to even be competitive in the game. And yeah, that first half, again, it's hard for me to take too much from it. I mean, the Warriors clearly came out with a game plan of, okay, we're going to try and blanket Mitchell as much as we can. We're going to have GP2 guarding him and starting alongside Steph in the backcourt with Wiggins, Draymond, and TJD. And we're going to try and make others beat us, which is, a ploy that they're probably going to go. I mean, they did that to a degree, especially in the first half against the Celtics on Wednesday night, and it worked it worked well, I suppose, in the first half against Tatum. So we're going to see that happen at times. And, we saw against the Clippers loss they had where Derrick Jones Jr. got some wide open threes and knocked down his fair share. I think he had 19 points or whatever. And those are the kind of risk v reward strategies where you're like, okay, let's see if a role player can hit shots tonight. And if they do, we're probably going to lose. And if they can't, then we're probably going to win. And again, a guy like Isaac Okoro, you're kind of giving him as many corner threes as he wants. And he comes out and shoots, what did he have? 4 of 6. Yeah, 4 of 6 from 3, 6 of 10 shooting overall, 16 points. He was a game high plus 32. So that just in 26 and a half minutes. So that just goes to show you kind of the way the Warriors were playing. That stream says the Warriors did not come to play. Reality has set in. What do you mean by reality? I want to know what you mean by reality has set in. I don't know, like, what's the reality? I think the Warriors are good. Like, they're 7-2. They had a really impressive win over the Celtics. They didn't, yes, I agree, they didn't come to play in this one. At least the starters and the veteran players didn't. Like, I thought Draymond in that first half was just a reminder of that Clippers game, really, where he just didn't have it. Like, he just didn't look like he didn't want to be there, really. Like, 4 fouls, a couple of ones where he's just like hacking blokes thinking, yep, send him to the line. A couple of careless turnovers. I'm surprised, like, I tweeted out at, I think, halftime that I would have actually almost just sat Draymond for the rest of the game and just said, okay, you know what, you don't have it. Yeah, he made a couple of corner threes in the third quarter. That was okay, but it was just a game he didn't have it. Steph didn't really have it either. And ultimately, those guys, get I guess the positive from this is, Steph plays under 24 minutes. Draymond plays just over 20 minutes. Again, he didn't really have it. He's won a couple of games for the Warriors already with his defense and his production on offense as well, it must be said. So I'm not overly concerned. Dashstream says terrible non-shooting starting lineup, porous defense, lack of height exposed, all around outclassed. Okay, you make a couple of good points there. Yeah, I have no doubt. Now, there are specific issues here with the Warriors, which I think you've delved into there. That doesn't mean they're not a good team. Like, I think this team over the first 9 games has shown that they are capable of being a top 6 seed in the Western Conference. And I'm not going to overreact too much to this one poor performance, right? But you do bring up some good points. Terrible non-shooting starting lineup. Yes, I agree with that. GP2 isn't spacing the floor for you. If you bring back Kuminga and go big, that's obviously not spacing the floor for you. So what do? Do you continue with the Draymond and TJD combination? I think you have to try and because ultimately the Warriors, when you say porous defense, I think this defense didn't come to play. There was no intensity really in the first half of this game, but I still think this is a very, very good to elite defense. Like, they entered the game second in defensive rating. Not sure where that'll go to now after this performance where they give up 136 points. But I do think this is an elite defense, top 3, top 5 defense in the league, right? And I'm not going to be swayed by that based on this performance. So I do think that Draymond, TJD will probably continue to start together, but I'll get into more of that in a second. You do have to try and get more shooting out there. I think the most obvious move, and I spoke about this on after the last post-game live, I think DeAnthony Melton back in this one looked pretty good, I thought. 10 points in 18 minutes, 4 of 11 from the floor, 2 of 6 from three-point range, +6. I thought he was good in the second half. I think he's just got to be starting. Him or Moody have got to be starting, right? I get the Peyton idea of trying to lock down an opposing guard even before they get going, in terms of Donovan Mitchell tonight. Like, I absolutely get that. But Melton is still a good defender. Moody is still a capable defender, right? These are not bad defenders. And particularly in the case of Melton, like, he gives you a lot of what GP2 brings in terms of that perimeter defense, and he is a spacing threat. So in terms of the most obvious move the Warriors can make to try and correct that non-shooting in the starting lineup, it's got to go back to either Moody, or I think more likely it's got to be Melton. And going back all the way to the start of preseason, that's what I thought the Warriors starting backcourt was going to be, Curry and Melton. We haven't seen that at all, right? Across, I don't think we even saw it in preseason, let alone the first 9 games of this regular season. And obviously much of that has to do with Melton's just come off a 5-game absence due to that back injury. I do think that is the most obvious change that I think Steve should make. And honestly, I think he will make. Like, GP2 is not like, a guaranteed starter every night. It's just these couple of games against the Cavs in this game, obviously. And then was it 2 games ago? It was against the Wizards, I think, where you try and guard him, try and match him up with Jordan Poole and have him guard JP. So it's a specific matchup thing. I even think like I'd be more interested in just having GP2 as that role player off the bench who comes in when a guy is on fire kind of thing, rather than necessarily. Now I know you'd argue that, okay, well, we don't want a guy like Donovan Mitchell getting going and getting in a rhythm, because by the time you put GP2 out there, maybe it's too late. He's already done his damage. He's already hit a rhythm, hit a groove, and he's just making shots. So I understand that argument. But Wiggins is still an excellent perimeter defender. Melton is still an excellent perimeter defender. You can find a way to balance out between having the defense and the offense, right? You also make a good point in terms of the lack of height exposed. That's probably the one thing that I would take from this game, right, from a Warriors standpoint, is that this is a bit of an ongoing issue for me, and I've spoken about it multiple times. I think the Warriors have a real vulnerability and a real issue against genuine size 7-footers who have some semblance of offensive skill, right? It doesn't have to be Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, the absolute MVP caliber players. It just has to be guys who finish well around the basket, who maybe have a mid-range game and have some versatility offensively rather than just being, a guy like TJD who's, a lob threat or a pick and roll threat. Someone who's got a little bit more to their game than that. And that person is Evan Mobley, right? 7-foot guy, finishes really well around the basket, but can create some of his own as well, not just a pick and roll lob threat, right? Has some more versatility to his offensive game. I think I love him on the Warriors. I think he's feel for the game. I think he's bound for stardom. I think he's going to be a multi-time All-Star in his career. Fantastic young player, and he killed the Warriors tonight. And I think that's what I take most from it is, yes, the 3-point shooting of Cleveland in the first half is going to grab the headlines, and rightly so. 13 of 17 from 3-point range. No team will probably ever do that for the rest of the season. That was unreal. But for me, I look at that and think, okay, well, that's just like a one-off. Yes, the Warrior defense wasn't great. They were leaving Isaac Okoro wide open for threes. He was hitting them. Okay, it is what it is. That's not necessarily going to happen again. But what might happen again is a really talented offensive player taking advantage of being a little bit bigger than the Warriors, of Draymond only being 6'6", of TJD only being 6'9". And we saw that with Mobley going for 23 points. He had 6 points early. I think he had 6 of their first 15. He finishes with 23 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists in just over 26 minutes on 7 of 12 shooting. And then add to that, you have Jared Allen go for 13 points, 12 rebounds. What did he have as well? 13, 12, 3 assists, 4 offensive rebounds, 5 of 7 shooting. So those guys combined, I think, even more so than the 3-point shooting, those guys really dominated on the interior, as opposed to a guy like TJD who had 3 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, just no impact on the game whatsoever. Loon was okay off the bench, but I thought he was more, in the fourth quarter, he was good where the game obviously was out of reach from a Warriors perspective. So when the game was there to be won, the Cavs and that combination of Mobley and Allen just dominated. And I think that's as notable as the 3-point shooting. As Dash Stream says, the difference was wide open threes for the Cavs and heavily contested threes against the Warriors. Yeah, I agree with that. And the Warrior defense, again, clearly came out and said, all right, we're going to give up some wide open shots to, Isaac Okoro. I think the main guy goes 4 of 6. Ty Jerome going 3 of 3 in the first half. I think 8 different guys for the Cavs made a 3 in the first half. The ball was really moving beautifully for them, and credit to Kenny Atkinson. Their offense right now is absolutely humming, and probably humming in a way that I didn't think was necessarily possible when you've got Evan Mobley and Jared Allen in the front court, neither of which are spacing threats. Like Mobley takes the odd 3 here and there and can hit a mid-range, but clearly isn't a guy that defenses are going to, run out to at the 3-point line, that's for sure. So the fact that they're able to get up as many threes as they do, and the fact that they're able to space the floor like they do and move the ball like they do with that front court combination, I think is huge for them, because obviously defensively they're always going to be pretty good with those two guys kind of manning the interior, as they did in this one. Again, I think that was probably the most notable perspective for me from a Warrior standpoint, is that, okay, against really talented big guys in the league, I think they're going to have some issues. And Evan Mobley, again, kind of reiterated that point in this one. Now, what do they do in terms of that? There's just no one on the roster, right? There's no one on the roster to try it. They've got one 7-footer, and he's playing right now with Santa Cruz. Let me update that game as we're moving along here. The Suns have come back a bit. The Warriors still up by 11, 62-51, 2 minutes left in the first half. Quentin Post has 11 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists on 5 of 10 shooting. Made his first 3. So 11, 8, and 2 in the first half for Quentin Post with a couple of minutes left. Nice start from him, but not a guy in preseason that looked like he was going to be the anchor of a defense or being a rotation player or anything like that in his rookie season. So the Warriors don't really have an option to throw out there to try and match that size. And, there's you don't come up against a heap of offensive talented centers on a regular basis necessarily. There are a lot out there, but a lot of these games, games against the Wizards, even Valanciunas played pretty well against the Warriors, you'd have to say. And Alex Saad did a couple of things against the Warriors the other day. Coming up against the Celtics, Keita hurt them a little bit early in the fourth quarter, but again, guys like Keita, Luke Cornett, they're not really concerning me. Now, yes, when Porzingis comes back, then yeah, he's definitely going to hurt you with his versatility offensively and his skill set. It's going to be interesting on Sunday, in Oklahoma City when they come up against Chet Holmgren, who is one of the most talented young centers in the league. And what he's been doing so far this season has been incredible for them. Obviously, got an ability to do a wide range of things offensively in terms of pick and pop, pick and roll. I love how he just works hard in transition and tries to get the easy baskets by just running hard in transition and doing the dirty stuff. He's obviously such a talented young player, and it's going to be interesting to see how the Warriors match up to him and how the Warriors guard him and the Thunder in general. GSW says, feel like against good teams in the playoffs, Warriors won't get away with 12, 13-man rotations. Need a 3-for-1 at least for an all-star. It's really interesting. I had that podcast episode yesterday in regard to whether the Warriors need a trade or not, and kind of the stuff about Giannis. And there's actually quite a lot of negative feedback, I suppose, on that, which is fine. I'm absolutely up for if people want to argue that the Warriors should continue with what they've got, or not worry, that the depth is a unique aspect that the Warriors should keep, because it allows. I think it's a really good point. The depth allows the Warriors to just chuck waves and waves at opposition teams and have guys go out there for 15, 20 minutes and give it all they've got, rather than just have 8 guys who all play 25, 30 plus minutes and have to conserve themselves. That's a fine point to make. Absolutely fine point to make. Now, I disagree with it slightly. I'm of that same thought as GSW there, who says that the Warriors need at least a 3-for-1 trade for an all-star. I'm probably on that side. It's got to be the right player. No doubt about that. And I keep coming back to Jimmy Butler. I wouldn't make that trade right now. But I do think I'm of that belief that the Warriors do need a trade. And I think you're probably right that the Warriors can't continue with a 12, 13-man rotation. It's going to work some nights. It's going to work. It's going to not work other nights, right? And a game like this one, what do you say? Do you say it worked because they actually came back and won the second half by over 20? I don't think so. Again, they went 12 deep in the first half. I think Moody and Slow-Mo didn't see minutes until the second quarter. It's kind of crazy how Moody goes from kind of the starting lineup to just, last guy off the bench, kind of like 12th man in the rotation, which is kind of hectic, but it goes down to, again, the Warriors' depth. Look, it's a positive and it's a negative in different ways. I think so far this season it's been overwhelmingly a positive, and I think it will continue to be to a degree, but whether it works or not in terms of reaching the absolute high-end point of the West, in terms of being a top 3 team, and in terms of potentially getting to the Western Conference Finals, I have real doubts about that. Dash Stream says, reality is that the Warriors are not as good as we would like to believe. They still need some bigger bodies. I don't know. I find they're above expectation for me right now. That's so when you say they're not as good as we would like to believe, depends what if your expectations are that this roster is genuinely capable of winning a championship, then I think that's more on your probably wrong expectations than it is the Warriors. I don't know. I agree with you on they still need some bigger bodies point. I just don't think if we have this expectation that they're going to be a championship team, then I don't think that's the right one based on this roster. Now, you can have the expectation that they should be a championship team, but then I think that you should have the expectation that they need to make a move to make that happen, right? And so based on this current roster, I think they're above where I didn't think this roster was capable of coming out and beating Boston 118, 112 on Wednesday. And yet they did that, right? They're 7-2. They're still in a great spot. And I'm not overreacting to this one defeat. I think they're a good team. I think they're capable of the top 6 team in the West, right? If that's the expectation, which for me, coming into the season, if we're being absolutely realistic about it and not being a biased, overly optimistic fan, most analysts would have said that the Warriors are around the play-in race, right? Between 6 and 11 in the West, right? Now, if they can get, with this roster, if they can get out of the play-in tournament completely and not have to be involved in that and be a top 6 seed in the West, I think based on preseason expectations, that would be a really, really good result, right? And that would be above most expectations externally on what, league-wide analysts, guys at ESPN, The Athletic, whatever else would argue going into the season. So they're above expectation for me right now. And again, if you have the expectation of making the finals or winning a championship, I think you've got to have that based off you think they can make another move before the February 6th trade deadline. Shivansh says this is a one-off against a team that shot with absurd efficiency. Relax, we'll be just fine. I agree with that. I'm just not taking too much. Like they shot absurd. Yes, some of that was the defense, but as Kalender and Fitz were kind of mentioning in the broadcast there, you could line up, Isaac Okoro, right? You could line him up and say, go have 17 warm-up threes in the pregame with no defense whatsoever, and he's probably not making 13 out of 17 or the 4 or the 6 that he even made in the game. You line up, all these Cavs guys and say, take a combined 17 threes against no defense. They're probably not making 13, right? They just come out in this one and they do that against an actual defense. So, yes, we can be a little bit critical of the Warrior defense and the Warrior play overall, but I just think the Cavs their shooting was otherworldly, and there's not much. I was just shaking my head in the first half thinking, okay, it's just one of those games. And that's what it was. And credit to the Warriors for fighting back. I think that meant something. And in terms of taking something with you moving forward, I wouldn't discount that completely. I just thought it was a nice showing of their fight and their resilience, which I think we've seen so far this season. I mean, you look at the last couple of games, the Rockets win that they had where they were up 30, the Rockets come all the way back and the Warriors still managed to hold on in overtime with no Steph, with Draymond getting ejected, with Pods not Draymond getting ejected, kicked out, 6 fouls. Pods fouling out as well. Like getting that win, that showed some serious resilience. The Celtics the other day, building a 14-point lead early in the third quarter, Celtics turned the game around, kind of 21-point turnaround, lead by 7 with 6 minutes to go, whatever. Warriors still find a way to end, I think, on a 30-17 run or something like that over the last 6-7 minutes of the game to win that one. Like, this team's shown resilience, and I think it's kind of easy to say, oh, well, they were down 41 points and then the Cavs just cooled off a bit and, they made it a bit more respectable and only lost by 19. No, I think that means something. Again, I'm not taking a whole lot away from it. I'm not saying that they're going to turn that second half into a win against OKC or anything, but it's something, right? It's something. GSW says trade for Nikola Vucevic. Yeah, I've written about him a little bit in the past as a potential option. He does make sense as a floor spacing 5. Like, if you can have him out there alongside Draymond, I think that makes a lot more sense. I still have concerns with TJD, again, going back to obviously the defensive stuff against real legit 7-footers like Mobley, who, absolutely dominated today. And then obviously with the spacing concerns with him and Draymond together in the front court, albeit Draymond again made a couple of threes in this one, shooting the ball pretty well to start the season. So Vucevic, he's actually started the season okay, but I'm not sure he's a guy. I don't know. I think I'd like a level above him in terms of caliber of player. And what would you have to give? Like, he's making $20 million or whatever, so that means you're probably giving up at least 2, maybe 3 role players. Who is that? Like, I don't know. Are you going to give up Peyton and Looney right now for Vucevic? I know it changes the way you play and it gives you that spacing 5. It's probably a trade I would have made certainly before the season, but Looney and GP2 are playing well now. Like, you're not giving up Buddy Hield for Vucevic in that kind of trade. You're not giving up Kyle Anderson, are you? Like, what? Like, who are you giving up for Vucevic based on his? Like, you're clearly not giving up Wiggins. You're not going to give up Kuminga. Like, I don't know. Who is it? Who is it for Nikola Vucevic? This is why it's almost like it's pointless the Warriors trading for a role player. And Vucevic is probably better than a role player. I'll give him credit for that. And at least he has been across the course of his career. He's been a very, very good player. I think he's been an all-star before. Very good player. But unless you're getting that absolute top tier of player like a Giannis, who is as top tier as he can get, then I'm not sure trading for anyone is really going to be that helpful. unless it's like a floor spacing 5 who's like better, like significantly better than Vucevic. Now, Markkanen would have obviously been the dream during the offseason. Didn't happen. And he's not even a 5, but you'd kind of play him as such next to Draymond. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. Siobhan says, what bigger body that can both defend and play good offense is available? Anyone? We're not even sure if Giannis is, and the salary cap situation makes the trade all the more complicated. Yeah, I don't know. There is no one. There is no one right now. Markkanen was the guy during the offseason. It's why it made so much sense, not just because of how talented he is as a player, but because of because of how he would have fit the Warriors system on both ends of the floor. So there is no one right now. Like, I was listening to the Plus Warriors Plus Minus podcast. Those guys are back with Tim Kawakami, Anthony Slater, Marcus Thompson. Good to see them back, and really interesting listen earlier today on. They were talking about Kuminga quite a lot and talking about how the Pacers had interest in him because they wanted kind of a big forward next to Miles Turner. Now, obviously, they went and ultimately got Pascal Siakam. That's like Miles Turner, which is a guy which at his best, is a perfect kind of fit in the Warriors system. As it's really like these 3-and-D centers. Brook Lopez is another one, I suppose, who during the offseason it was like, okay, could you be interested in him? He hasn't had a great start to the season. He's now old. Let's put it that way. He's old. And I think a lot of the Bucks struggles. I wouldn't be surprised if Brook Lopez gets traded in the next 3 months. Let's put it that way. It sounds like the Bucks are trying to make a trade. I think he might be the best avenue from a salary perspective to try and make that happen for them. Now, what they can get in return, I don't know. I think Brook Lopez is maybe looking a little washed at this point, but he's certainly, again, it's like the 3-and-D style center, not 3-and-D wing, 3-and-D center. Miles Turner, Brook Lopez. The one they should have right now, who I think it's really disappointing they don't, is Porzingis. Like, I'll say it until the cows come home. Like, when they were looking to trade Jordan Poole last offseason, they shouldn't have been interested in Chris Paul. They should have gone to the Wizards and said, no, not Chris Paul. We want Kristaps Porzingis. Like, the Celtics got him for barely anything. Now, I know he's injury prone. I get that. But the depth of this Warrior roster could have probably covered it to a degree. And I think when he's fully healthy, he just revolutionized the team with his floor spacing to a completely different level. GSW Cat could be that player, but don't see Knicks trading him. Yeah, well, I mean, there's stuff about the Knicks potentially being interested in Giannis and whether Cat could be involved in a Giannis trade, which is kind of crazy given they just acquired him. He's not going to be on the move anytime soon, you wouldn't have thought, and at least not for what the Warriors have to offer the other way, right? Like, that's just not going to happen. The Warriors could have, I think there were reports that they did have talks with Minnesota, I think, and then it didn't really go anywhere. I mean, that would have required them to take back Wiggins kind of thing, and it just, that wouldn't have, it didn't really make too much sense. And I think with the Warriors, their salary cap position they're in now after the offseason, I think they would have found it difficult to be taking on Cat's 4-year, $220 million extension. So I don't know. Again, I agree with you. He would have been a nice player as that 3-and-D and an absolute high-end one, like an elite all-star level player who could potentially be that second scorer next to Steph as well. So he would have been really good. Markkanen would have been really good, particularly given the Markkanen contract situation, albeit he's now got that massive extension. Miles Turner, Lopez, Porzingis. I don't know. It's just kind of crazy. The Warriors have never really had a good one in like the whole Steph era, like most Spates, but he was like a bench spark plug guy. Like, the guys have tried, like Porter, I suppose, but he's not a center as such. But he was obviously huge in the championship season. Tried it with Saric, didn't work. Tried it with JaMychal Green, didn't work. Like, they've just never really had one, right? David West, but again, bench guy, not a starter. Like, they were hoping Wiseman could be that player. Obviously didn't pan out. Like, it's kind of crazy. They've never really had a genuine floor. DeMarcus Cousins, right? Okay, I've completely forgot about Boogie for that one season. And again, he only played like 30 games coming off torn Achilles, right? So he obviously was one and the most high caliber player that they've had in terms of that kind of player. But other than that, have they ever really had an option where you're just like, okay, he's a genuine starter in this league and he can play 25, 30 plus minutes a game for you. Like, I don't know. It's tough to see. Anyway, I'll probably finish it up there. We've been going for nearly 35 minutes. Just an update. Valley Suns versus Santa Cruz Warriors halftime. The Warriors have put up 70 points, if you don't mind, on 55.6% shooting from the floor, 52.9% from three-point range, 75%, 6 of 8 from the free throw line. Quinton Post. He's now 1 of 5 from 3, 5 of 11 overall. He's 13 points. He's had 9 rebounds, 3 on the offensive end, 3 assists, 13, 9, and 3 for Quinton Post with 2 fouls and 2 turnovers in the first half. That's a positive start for him. Other guys here, Kevin Knox playing his first game for Santa Cruz, 12 points, 3 rebounds, 4 of 9 shooting, 1 of 3 from three-point range. Reese Beekman, of course, another guy on a two-way contract, had a nice start, 10 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and a couple of steals in the first half, 5 of 9 shooting. So that's a nice start for him. Blake Hinson, who I was very interested in, obviously was part of the training camp roster, sharpshooter, who was initially on a two-way contract with the Lakers before they let him go. 8 points for him on 3 of 5 shooting, 2 of 3 from three-point range. Yuri Collins, little point guard there, also has 7 points off the bench. Jackson Rowe, of course, he was also on the training camp roster, 9 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists as well. Javen Johnson, who I think was on the training camp roster going back to last season, ahead of the 2023-24 season. He had 8 points, 2 rebounds in the first half as well. So the Warriors, nice start there. Hopefully they can go on with it. I'll probably have an article out for bluemanhoop.com tomorrow morning on that game and the result of that, and some of the stuff from Quinton Post. So hopefully that can continue and the Warriors can at least get one win out of Friday night's proceedings. Other than that, guys, thank you very much to those of you that have been in the live stream and those that have commented. Otherwise, if you're watching this on replay, whether on YouTube or via the podcast feed, thank you very much for tuning in. Warriors will play the Thunder on Sunday in Oklahoma City. Going to be a tough one. Might be back tomorrow for a preview episode of that, and especially if there's any other Warriors news floating about between now and then. Other than that, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POK252. That's POK252 and X/Twitter. We're on TikTok and Instagram, Golden State with Mates. And other than that, guys, thank you very much again and have a great weekend.